Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of Vintage Made Modern. Today I'm going to share with you the third chapter in my book, Vintage Notions. The theme of this chapter is a thimble full of cheerfulness. So to start out, I'm going to share the image on the page and then move on to one of my favorite quotes that's in Mary's essay, Honest Purpose. Keep your heart young and free and happy. Look for the good in people, in conditions, in surroundings. Interest yourself in the heart next to you, and your own troubles will melt away like icicles in the sunshine. Love that. And again, much of Mary's advice is timeless. It's really the same things that we are looking at today in life and happiness. Below that quote on the same page is a really unique embroidery design that's hand tinted and then embroidered. And so I wanted to share with you the actual vintage piece that's in my collection where that design came from. So it was actually a laundry bag. So this is a project that I bought that was in process. It's not finished, but you can see here this the hand tinting that I mentioned before, the fun French knots in the centers of the flower, and then the laundry written in kind of a unique script to look like the style of the design. What I did discover with this project and several other projects that I have that are similar that I'll show you in a minute is that this is a technique, and actually it's a technique that I believe Mary Brooks Picken was the originator or the designer of. And I found it in my little treasure. This is called Sewing Secrets, and it was a little booklet that was actually published by Coats and Clark Thread, which you might be familiar of. It's still a brand that we have today, now called Coats, and you'll find their thread in quilt and fabric stores, today. So here's the opener where you can see Mary Brooks Picken wrote this little essay, Sewing Secrets, and I'm going to flip back. It's a darling essay. I'll share that with you a little bit later. And then here we have the actual trim stitch page. So you can see how the designs are kind of a dotted embroidery line with about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch stitch length. And this was the page that then I researched and was able to find a few more of pieces like this in my collection. So I wanted to share those with you too. This is a little basket. It was probably used maybe for clothespins or something like that. And you can see again where the fabric is tinted, and then trim stitch, as we call it, was outlined the design, and then we added French knots. There's just accents to the flower to give it more dimension. So this I thought was a really fun little piece to share. And then I also have actually a table runner, which I'll show you here. This table runner again does have some tinting on it. But I think this was a very well-used piece of vintage linen. And so the color in this is a little softer than in some of the other pieces that I've shared with you. So you've learned something new today. You've learned about the trim stitch, thanks to Mary Brooks Picken. So moving on, what else do we have in this chapter that's fun to look at? Well, how about a tape measure? So you can see on the Honest Purpose page, I grabbed one from my collection of tape measures. We scanned it and we added it to the page. And so I thought it'd be fun to share with you some other tape measures in my collection. I bet, does anybody else out there have a collection of tape measures? I'm guessing maybe, maybe not. So again, more vintage notions to share with you. So here's a few. This one actually has 2 colors, and it looks like it's a 1.5 yards long. So we have both the yellow and a nice soft blue. Again, the color that you find in vintage content is always so unique and usually inspiring. Here's another tape measure that has a green cast to it, and I believe we used this one on the pages of the end sheets of the Vintage Notions book. Let's take a quick look, see if I'm right or not. Oh, spot on. There you go. So another Vintage Notion from the book. This was a really interesting tape measure that I found in my collection, and I started to read it, and it was actually a tape measure that the Spiegel catalog would send you to measure yourself when you were buying clothing from that catalog. So another interesting detail to share with you about a vintage notion. And one last tape measure. This I thought was an interesting traditional yellow, but it also had a nice edge to it. So all those little details are fun to share. So next up in the book, I'm going to bounce ahead to the Department of Good Looks. And what we have here is a little essay on bathing. It was from the Fashion Service 1928. And you'll see these illustrations at the top. So I wanted to share with you where those illustrations came from. And they came from this little book called For Your Exquisite Beauty. And I will share with you a couple of them on pages. So this was a little beauty book that was probably a premium that came out from a cosmetic company to educate you on care of your skin, cleansing, how to wash your face, treatment for wrinkles. So you can see here, these illustrations they were black and white or grayscale when we started, but we went ahead and colorized them to make them match the palette that we'd chosen for that chapter. So this I thought was particularly fun and interesting, the egg mask. And I know we used both of the illustrations from the egg mask in the book. So there you go, Department of Good Looks. And with that information, I'm going to wrap up for today. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this chapter has so much great stuff. We're going to continue in episode 4, and we're going to talk about monograms and aprons. So I want to thank you for watching today, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed the videos, please give us a thumbs up, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for now.